All right, welcome back to Trimble Garage. So today I'm going to be working on the Subaru Sambar Rescue. Hopefully this is the last video to find out what is wrong with this thing and why it kept stalling. In fact, I do know what was wrong with this thing, and I had some footage. Unfortunately, I deleted it. So let's just get into what I found, and there's no surprise what the problem was with this thing. All right, so here's the carburetor all taken apart. I did have it on video, but like I say, I accidentally deleted it. And you may notice the bottom of the float bowl is quite dirty. It was not like that before. You can see a lot of debris and dust in there. Long story short, the carburetor was full of water. The driving it around, I guess, sloshed water in the tank, and it got picked up and filled the carburetor with water. And as you all know, engines don't run on water, despite what conspiracy theorists will tell you. So with that said, I need to drain the water out of the tank. So as you probably all know, that these tanks do not have a drain on the bottom. You can't just pull the plug and drain the water, drain your fuel out. And fuel floats on top of water. So what my plan is to go jack the back of the truck up. I'm going to disconnect the hose that goes to the fuel filter, or to the fuel pump and to the fuel filter, and put another hose onto that. That's your pickup tube, and I'm going to siphon out as much water as I can until I get to gas. And to aid in that, I'm going to jack the front of the truck up so that the water should slosh to the back of the tank where the pickup is. And yeah, we'll do it that way. The last thing that I'll do is pour a bottle of methyl hydrate in there. And if you don't know, methyl hydrate is they call it a fuel line antifreeze. Keep your fuel lines from freezing up. If you do get any moisture in your fuel tanks in some of the colder climates of the country, it can freeze and block your fuel flow. So it actually will absorb the moisture into the methyl hydrate, and that will actually burn with the fuel. So that'll help get the last of the water out of the tank. So, and then finally after that, I will purge the fuel line out. I'll have to replace the fuel filter, and hopefully the fuel pump's okay, although I do have a spare. So let's get into jacking the back of this truck up and getting stinky with gas. All right, the truck is all jacked up, so I can get underneath. And your fuel pickup that goes to your fuel filter is right here on the rear of the tank at the bottom. So there's a fuel filter there, and I can see it is brown, full of stuff. So that is definitely going to have to get replaced. I don't think I even have one of those, but anyway, let's pop this fuel line off here, and we'll start to siphon. All right, I pulled the right rear wheel off, or tire off, so that I could get to the filter a little easier. I'm going to pop this filter off and use the hose that's going to the filter. That goes directly to the tank. I have to replace this filter anyway, and in case you're curious, these filters should be readily available at any of your local parts store. It's basically, if you look up an older Toyota Tercel, it is the same part number. Like a 1990s vintage carbureted Tercel. And these just snap in like that. I'll have to get a pair of pliers on here and try to twist that. I'm got a catch can under here to catch the stinky fuel that's going to come out. There we go. All right, that's one pipe. One hose. I'll get the other hose off here. There we go. Yeah, that's totally water in there. I'm looking at here, pouring this filter out. You can see how the water, or the gas, is floating on top of the water. So, and it is just muddy, mucky mess here. That's what was basically coming out of the carburetor that I had on film. Not good, but anyway, like I say, these filters are readily available. Not super common because it's for a pretty old car that there's not too many of anymore, but you don't have to go to Japan to get these. So what I have now is the fuel line coming directly out of the bottom of the tank and hanging down here. So what I'm going to do is drop the truck down, lift the front of the truck up, and see if we can start siphoning gas, or water hopefully, out of this tank. Okay, before I go any further, I was wondering how the heck am I going to start a siphon on this? And if you ever have to drain your tank and you're doing what I'm doing, the easiest way, which worked like a charm, was to take your hose, this is your return line, so any overflow fuel or excess fuel going to your carburetor goes back to the tank. I just blew on this, which basically pressurized the tank and blew the fuel up that line and out, and it started siphoning it right away, or created a siphon. So now I've got a bolt in there just to keep it stopped, so I can get the tank tipped back by jacking the front of the truck up, the back of the truck back down, and yeah, see if we can get some water out of this thing. All right, let's pull this bolt out of here. Pull this bolt out, see what we get. See if we start getting water out of here. Should probably open my door. This is pretty fumy. All I need is a spark in here, and this place is going to go up. All right, I've already dumped a lot of fuel into my jerry can. Put a bit more in here, but you can see that looks like an oil slick there. That's actually underneath the fuel. That's the water, kind of muddy water, and there's not a lot there. I'm hoping that's all the water that was in the tank. There might be a little bit more, and the methyl hydrate will take care of it. So I'm going to pour as much of this fuel out as I can, burn the rest off. But yeah, and then I let the truck back down because it was just trickling fuel. It was pretty much done siphoning. So we'll see where we go from here. Back to the carburetor. I got the float bowl cleaned up. But inside here, I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can sort of see it. It's a little bit kind of corroded in there. And that's the accelerator pump. So I've got another accelerator pump that I rebuilt. Bought a kit actually on the other carburetor. This one's kind of nasty looking. I'm going to exchange that for the other one. But I'm going to have to get in there with some, I've got some 600 grit paper. I'm just going to try to clean that bore out a little bit so that seal on that accelerator pump will work better. So to get that bore cleaned out, I remember what I used one time before. It works really well. An old, worn out wire wheel on a Dremel tool is almost the perfect size to go inside there. And now, I don't know if you can see it. Anyway, the bore is nice and clean again, so that's good. I'm going to work at cleaning up the underside of this. Isn't too bad, but I just want to make sure there's no, I'm going to pull the needle valve seat out and make sure there's no junk on the filter. There's actually a filter on the other side of that, so I want to make sure none of the junk from that tank got into here. Carrying on. All right, I got the better accelerator pump on the new carburetor here, or the new used one. I got the needle valve put back together. I cleaned up inside the needle valve area just because there was a little bit of corrosion. This thing was sticking a little bit when I first got it, so I don't want that happening again. So I'm going to throw my gasket on here. This gasket is barely used, so I'm okay to use it, reuse it. Don't forget your little ball bearing. Oh, actually, that's not the right hole. Hold on. There we go. Ball bearing goes down here. Down this hole. Your aluminum weight. We'll take our carburetor, turn it upside down, and put the float bowl onto it. That's the only, that way you don't lose that weight and that ball. It doesn't come loose on you. It's a bit tricky. There we go. Get that on there. We'll put our screws on. Some of these wires, or these screws, have got little wire clamps. So I want to make sure you put those back on. And then what I do to tighten these up, I don't use a Phillips screw. I use a blade with a little ratchet, so as not to strip these screw heads. They don't need a lot of, they don't have to be too tight. Make sure it all works. It does, as you can see right there. See that accelerator pump going up and down. All right, that carb is together. Let's install it. Before I install the carburetor, one thing I did notice was I was getting a little bit of a coolant leak, and I think it might be from one of these hose clamps. They're just a spring clamp. These hoses are a little hard, so I'm gonna go buy some better hose clamps and put them on here. Now's the time to do it, because with the carburetor on, it's almost impossible. All right, it's been a few days since I finished off the last little part of the video. I went to a motorcycle climb. If you're interested in seeing that, check out some of my other videos. But for now, I went and picked up some new hose clamps, a bit of a variety, so I can redo the clamps on the coolant lines. I got a new fuel filter here, made by Beck Arnley. I don't have the part number. There's the part number there. It's kind of worn off. Anyway, it's for a late model Toyota. You can pick them up in any parts store. I got the carburetor all back together, cleaned up inside. It was full of some muck. So let's put this all back together. So there's some new hose clamps installed. One thing you'll want to do when you pop these off, of course, you're going to lose a lot of coolant. Put yourself a drip pan underneath, which is what I've got, so I can recover some of that new coolant, not have to lose it. But anyway, next thing is to throw the carburetor on. Okay, so with the fuel pump, you'll note there's an arrow. So that arrow is going to the fuel pump. So let me get underneath here. This is the line. You can see your fuel pump. I don't know if you can see it on camera right here. Fuel line to the fuel pump. So the arrow is going to go to the fuel pump. Slide that onto there. Oh, I have to get a little bit of sliptivity. And I've fished the fuel line up here from the tank. So, and then once you get those on there, you can just slip this right into this clip, and that'll be done. So let me just get some little bit of silicone grease and put it on here to help get the lines on. All right, let's try this again. Arrow to the fuel pump. See if this will slide on there this time. Oh yeah, that's better. And then I'll pull this bolt. Hopefully not much gas, if any, comes out. That's good. Get that onto here. Actually, I think I'll slide this into the clip now. Get that hose on there. Get our little clamps on. That's one. That's two. And there you go. Fuel pump is done. Next thing to do is purge the fuel system. All right, I got a little container at the other end of the fuel line where it goes to the carb. I'm just gonna go turn the key off and on a few times and see if I can get fuel pouring into that filter. It looks like a little bit went in there. I suspect the tank is too empty right now. So, and the truck being sitting like this. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pour some fuel in and try it again. So this is the methyl hydrate I'm gonna throw in here. This will absorb any moisture that's still in the tank. Let's get a funnel here, dump this in. Go. Next thing I'll do is pour in some fuel. This is clean gas. The gas that I took out of it, I put into a different jerry can. I'll be using that in my weed eater and lawnmower, pressure washer, whatever. But for here, I want clean gas. Okay, with that tank filled up with some gas, let's try this again, see if we can get some fuel going. Oh, there's a little bit more in there. It's not full, so I'm gonna see if I can get some fuel. Looks like it's slowly coming in there, that's good. I'll go to the other side here. See if I can get some. See, I just got a little, just a little cap that I put in there and the fuel line going into it. So I'm just gonna see if I can get this all purged through. All right, looking at this, the gas is, there's no water coming out of it. So I'm gonna get rid of this and hook the fuel line up, and let's hope she starts. All right, so I hooked up the lower fuel line, turned the key a bunch of times until I started to get a little bit of fuel puking out the return line out of the top, and then put that hose on. So now I know the carburetor should be full of fuel, so it should start up pretty quick. So let's see what happens. All right, let's give it a rip. Wow. Aces. So there you go, it's running. Now, it hit this before and broke down on me, so I'm gonna jostle it back and forth in the driveway. I'll move some cars out of the way and just to try to get that, if there is any water left in there, not only mix it with the methyl hydrate, but also see if I can stall this engine out again and fill it with water. I do not want to break down again down the road and have to go through the pain in the butt of towing or pushing this thing. It's pouring rain out right now, so yeah, I'm just gonna let this thing warm up a little bit and clean up some tools, maybe just put the engine cover on, and I think I'm good. Let's see what happens. All right, this thing's got me really frustrated. So it ran for a little while and then died. There is a bolt, or I should say like a bolt, a drain hole in the bottom of the carburetor, and you can drain the float bowl. So I drained the float bowl and it was full of moisture. So once again, I removed the fuel filter and repeated the process, drained the float bowl, drained the filter, and did a bit of more of a purge of the tank. And now it seems like I'm just getting fuel, but I think I've got a bunch of residue plugged up in the carburetor because it just will not run. It's driving me nuts, this thing. So anyway, I'm gonna pull this carburetor off again and see if it's plugged up. And if it's not, I'm dropping the fuel tank out of this thing. I really didn't want to have to do that because I just threw, a jerry can of fuel in it. So it's half a tank. But anyway, if that carburetor's not plugged up with some debris, then I'm going to be pulling the gas tank out. All right, it's the next day, and I did pull the carburetor off just before I called it a night. And I did find the inside of the float bowl was still nice and clean, but I did find inside where the accelerator pump was, it was still full of water. So I suspect that's where part of my problem was. It would idle, but as soon as you give it a bit of gas, it would just stall. And the kid gloves are coming off. I'm pulling the tank, so let's just get right into it. So to remove the tank, yeah, there's the filler pipe up front, which goes to your fuel door. There's a vent line, a vent hose that goes up there. There's 4 bolts for the tank, your connections for your fuel level sending unit, and 3 hoses at the back. And that should be all you need to remove the tank. So let's just get right to it. It's not going to be fun. All right, just a little update. Those are the 2 hoses that are on the top part of the tank. I just numbered the closest one, number 1, so I make sure I get them on the same spot. I've got the fuel sending unit disconnected. These are the bolts here for the tank. There's 4 of them. I've got 1 out. The other one is just hanging on. I've got 1 out from the front and 1 more to go in the front. They're really tight. Work them loose back and forth with some penetrating oil. And also, I forgot to mention, there's 2 brackets over there. All the cables, emergency brake cables, shifter cables, they all go through the speedometer cable clutch cable. They're held on by brackets on the tank, so you need to disconnect those brackets as well. I forgot about that. I also removed this little dust shield that sits right here, just to give me some more access. It's really easy, just two 10mm bolts, but again, penetrating oil is your friend. So let's carry on here. I'm probably gonna have to remove this mud flap so that I can get at the hose clamp up here for the filler hose. I don't want to undo this one, although there is a flapper valve in for like an anti-flow valve in here. It will leak and it'll just pour gas all over the place. So I want to take the tank out as a whole and then drain it. So carrying on. All right, fast forward a little bit. I got the bottom hose off and put a rubber vacuum bung on there just to keep any fuel from leaking out. The filler neck, show you how I got that off. Basically what I did is take one bolt that holds the mud flap here, and then there's a pin here and another pin here, just a push pin, and then you can fold the mud flap back to get to the filler neck. So I've got it basically barely hanging on there. It'll pop off with the tank. And then the vent pipe up here, it's removed. So everything is ready to go. It's basically both bolts up here are removed. And there's one bolt in the back. And the way that you get these tanks out, you drop the bottom of the tank and then slide the whole tank back about an inch or so, and it'll clear the front bracket. The front of the tank actually sits on top of a bracket, and the rear of the tank bolts up to a bracket. So you drop the back of the tank down, slide it back, and the whole tank will drop. And that's what I'm gonna do right now. I'll set up the time lapse for that one and see if it's a success or a messy failure. And there you have it. A fuel tank is out. So I should have done this, you know. I never thought, when I looked in the fuel sending unit hole there, I thought it looked like it was just gas. You couldn't see that there was water in the bottom, but that's the way it goes. So now what I gotta do is try to drain the fuel out. There's actually quite a bit in there, and drain it into this drain pan. Hopefully all the water will sit on the bottom, and I can drain it off into some containers, sort of try to separate the good gas from the bad stuff, and then yeah, get this thing drained out. So let's see what I can find. Okay, so the tank is all nice and dry. I got the fuel level sending unit back in. I chased the threads here, both on the tank and the two that are on the frame. The tap is a M8 by 1.25, so now the bolts should go in nice. So now I'm gonna go ahead and throw this tank back in, hook up the lines. It should go together a lot quicker than coming out because everything's cleaned up. And yeah, let's get this tank in. Already got the carburetor installed, and see if we can put some gas in this thing and get it going. All right, I just buttoned up all the cables. The tank's in, filler neck's hooked up. I need 2 more push pins on the front mud flap. I'll do that in a minute. I got the carburetor all hooked up. I did a purge. I just hooked up this line, which is the return line, to the tank. I've been flipping the switch to get it purged, so this should start right up. Whoa! All right, I think that's gonna do it because I know there's no water in that tank. It's totally dry. It's got just gas in it. So I think this thing is good to go. So I'm gonna clean up all my tools. I gotta get a bunch of cars out of the way, and yeah, let's see if this thing will actually go for a drive. Dare I take it for a drive? I think I will. All right, I got everything cleared out of the way. Taking this thing for a drive. All right, let's back this thing out. And the lights on. Signals are working. So far, so good. Driving real nice. Man, this truck is so quiet. Signal lights are loud. All right, this thing's really low on fuel, and I think I'm running out. Yeah, I am definitely running out of gas. Going up a bit of a hill now so that the gas is going to the back of the tank. And it, oh, it just died. Right at my house. Let's go get a little bit more fuel. Okay, well, this thing is still giving me grief. It is definitely something wrong with that carburetor. There is definitely fuel getting to it. I pulled the engine running, pulled the return line off, and it is just pouring fuel out. So it's fuel, but there's a dead spot just off idle. If you give it a bit of gas, like a kind of a healthy bit of throttle, it just stalls on its face. If you can give it just baby throttle ever so gently, bring the RPM up, and once the RPM are up, you can floor it and it gives it's fine. But there's a total dead spot in there, and I don't know what it is. I'm going to have to dig into this. Really frustrating. So this has been a really long video, so I'm going to be ending it here. If you've watched it this far, hey, thanks a lot. You're struggling along with me, I guess. But anyway, I'm going to dig into this in another video. I thought for sure this would be the last one, but it's not. It's the tank is back in. I've definitely got no more water, but there is something amiss with this carburetor, or the plumbing to it or something. So we're going to dig into that in the next video. So thoughts and comments down below. Yeah, if you haven't subscribed already, please do. Appreciate all you guys out there that have. And yeah, thanks a lot for watching. Have yourself a great day.